Hello, in this video we're going to be going over the rough installation of a Blue Ridge mini split. In Arizona we have several months of the year that can reach over 100 degrees and a couple weeks out of the year that can reach above 110 degrees. Therefore I wanted to upgrade the air conditioning system to help the master bedroom, which is the furthest from the central AC unit, cool the bedroom. So your 220 is required for the Blue Ridge mini split. It requires a dedicated 220 line. I called a couple electrical contractors, and about the average estimate I got to run about 90 feet of 220 was $360. Fairly decent handyman, so I figured I would try it myself, and I paid the contractor $80 to run it from the main panel to the house into that junction box and end it there. I left the breaker off and I finished the install myself. I went out and bought a conduit bender, half-inch conduit bender. To run 220 exterior like this, you need to use the rain-tight compression fittings, and when you're running the 220, make sure you're using the proper gauge. For my installation, I believe I used a 14 gauge wire, and it has to be the HH&T wire. Something about the insulation around the wire, do not use Romex in this if you want it to be up to code, and possibly safety and electrical hazards. So anyway, I went out and bought a bunch of half-inch EMT conduit, couplings, and connectors, and I went out and bought my 3 different color wire. Made the connections inside the box. This stuff took me quite a while because I did it one-handed by myself, but just ran it along the top of the house, pulled the wire all the way through. There's one of the couplings. Couplings connect pieces together, and connectors connect the pipe with any fitting. So I came down, I just put a slight bend to give me the angle that I wanted. This is a pull-through elbow where you can pull the wire through, and then I ran it along the fascia of the house, the whole span of the house. There we go. Kept it nice and tight under the fascia, and then just used a 90-degree elbow, put it in there, and then ran it. Oh, that's condensate from the main air conditioning unit, and ran it along the house. So make sure you check and double check all your measurements before you start. I thought I only needed 50 feet, and I needed about twice as much, so had to kind of stop halfway and then restart. Ran it right to the corner, and then put another 90-degree elbow and came down. So that right there you see is a line set cover. They make them, they're awesome, they look good. And right behind that line set cover is the hole, 2.5-inch hole. I had to drill through with a hammer drill all the way through to the inside of the house. This house was built in 1961. It's an old like ranch Santa Fe brick house. So the concrete blocks were about maybe 9-10 inches thick. So it took me a while of drilling, chiseling out the core that I had drilled. But then once I had gotten through, it was nice and easy. The hole you put in, you want to have at a slight angle to help with the condensation that builds up, drain down, and then the line set cover just runs all the way down to the unit. there's the EMT that I have running down to the disconnect box. So I did all the electrical myself as well, just from a little research. I called the customer service at Blue Ridge, and they're excellent. When you talk to tech support, they'll walk you through everything. I had some concerns with some of the electrical, so I called them and they walked me through it. Turned out great. And there's the installed unit exterior. There's the disconnect box. I poured a small slab just based off the dimensions of the exterior compressor unit, and used some concrete screws to secure the feet. So far I've only had this going for a couple days. Don't mind the extra coil of copper. I ordered way too much, and the factory flare fittings were just too good to cut. And after I talked to a HVAC contractor, they said it actually is a little more work if you cut the copper, because the units come pre-charged with enough refrigerant to adequately run 25 feet of this copper. So if you were to cut the copper, you would have to bleed some refrigerant, and then it gets a little more in-depth. So I don't know if you can tell right now, but the unit's running. You can tell by the bougainvillea here kind of blowing. Yeah, I think the plant's a little too close to the unit, but I'll just trim it as it gets bigger. But as you can tell, I'm not raising my voice, and it is extremely quiet. I still need to cut some of this extra condensation drain line. I originally planned to use about 20 feet of everything: control wire, copper, and the condensation drain line. After I got the unit and realized the dimensions of the interior mounted air handler on the wall, I realized I could actually put it somewhere that I wanted to in the first place, which only required about 15 feet of everything. So I still have some extra stuff here I have to trim up and get rid of. But I'll wrap it up there. It's a nice day out here in southern Arizona, and if you are considering a mini split, Blue Ridge is backed up by a major company called Gree, and they're well known in the AC world. Came with a good warranty. I believe it was a 2-year compressor, 5-year parts warranty, and the interior unit is just as quiet. I'd say it's not louder than your normal ceiling fan. It'd be probably quieter than that. Some awesome features, and bang for your buck, I'd say this is one of the best bets you can go with. Blue Ridge only makes them in 220 volt. They do make a 110 version, however it's only a heat pump, it's not an air conditioning unit. But for the entire kit, if you're just going to go with the basic 15 feet of copper line, 15 feet of control wire, condensation line, this is a 12,000 BTU unit, you're probably looking around 700, 750 maybe, somewhere in there. By me running my own electrical and handling all the electrical myself, I ended up saving about 200 bucks. Materials were about 100 and maybe 110, and then I ended up buying that tubing bender, which I really only needed for this project, but I like collecting tools, so save yourself a little money. Took me a lot longer to do than probably your professional. However, I had the time, and I like to, do things on my own. All right, take care.